Canadian actor, writer, and stand-up comedian. He first took the stage as a stand-up comedian in 1988 at the Saskatoon Comedy Club. You know him best as the creator and main character Brent Leroy from the sitcom Corner Gas, which continued with a featured film and an animated series. In 2023, he released his first novel, Huge, a thriller that follows touring comedians. And you can catch him live in Timmins April 25th as he headlines the Timmins Comedy Festival. Brent Butt, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So, Brent, after 38 years of doing stand-up comedy, what is it that keeps you coming back to the stage?
Yeah, honestly, it's still my very favorite thing to do. I'm lucky I get to do a lot of things, but there's nothing like it. There's nothing like live performance. I think any musician or actor or anybody that does any kind of performance that can be both recorded separately antiseptically in a studio or in front of a live audience will tell you that there's nothing that compares to performing live. And I think for me, part of it is, you're standing in the wings, you're waiting to step out in front of what is essentially a brand new animal. Anytime you get 500, 600, 1,000 individuals together in a room, that creates a brand new animal that has never existed before. And you don't know, as you wait in the wings, waiting to be announced, you don't know what it's going to take to make this particular animal like you.
Yeah.
And it's that fun. You go out and you sort of, I know what I'm going to do. I know how I'm going to open the show. But the direction that the show goes after that is really dependent upon the response from the crowd. And so it's different every night. And that's what I love about it.
So when performing a stand-up comedy show, consistency and content is something you tend to hold in a high regard, not just within your own comedy style, but in the styles of the comedians who take stage to open up the show for you. So, Brent, what are some of the qualities that you look for in an opener? And what's one way a comedian can guarantee they won't get a spot during a Brent Butt show?
Being funnier than I am. That's a good recipe for me to ignore you completely. And then no, it's happened lots of times. I have opening acts who go out and just absolutely destroy and kill in front of me, and so it forces you to ratchet up your game. So I kind of like that. So it's like a gunslinger, some young gunslinger coming out.
Yeah.
But really, what I'm looking for is originality more than anything else. I just don't want somebody to go out and sort of be a hack and do the same sort of basic 7 premises that have glued together stand-up comedy for 40 years, right? I like comedians that go out and do something a little different. And when I'm doing a, pardon me, when I'm doing a big theater show in front of people who have paid to see me, I also have to sort of take into consideration, is their act going to be off-putting to the people who have paid the ticket to see me? Because I generally work pretty clean. I have a reputation as being a pretty clean, inoffensive comedian in terms of subject matter and language. And so a lot of people come out and see me for that reason, people who don't want to hear the bluer, grittier side of the world, right? And so I don't want to put in front of them somebody who's filthy, even if I think they're funny, even if I think there's a lot of my favorite comedians are absolutely filthy, but they're original, sharp minds who are doing original filth. And I love that. For me, it's just all about originality. But I feel some responsibility to those people that are coming, who've paid a ticket, bought a ticket to see me, expecting a certain kind of night out. I don't want to just give them something that they're not going to enjoy or be offended by.
Yeah, you're looking for something the whole family can come out to and enjoy.
Well, not necessarily the whole family, because sometimes I have people bring, I look out in the crowd and there's an 8-year-old sitting beside their parents. And you're like, okay, well, the kid's not going to be offended, but I'm not the doodle bops, right? I'm not going to be doing songs for kids. I'm going to be telling jokes about paying your taxes and I'm going to be middle-aged man / old man jokes. I don't know that the kids are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. So to kind of take a step back here, in 2018, the beloved sitcom Corner Gas made its return to television with an animated series. What were some of the challenges and some of the freedoms that came along with turning a live action show into an animation?
I think the main challenge was, especially just going into it, like when we were first kicking around the idea, we were working on existing material that was sort of beloved. People had strong feelings about corner gas. They took it to heart, and people felt like the characters in the show were part of their lives. And we hear it all the time from people about how the whole family would gather to watch the show, and so there was sort of people. The show was kind of beloved by people, and so now we're doing something based on that, but it's going to be different. So the challenge is, how can we bring them everything that they love about the show, but also provide something new and different in terms of it being animated? And we didn't know really if that was going to work at all. And so we thought, well, why don't we just do a 3-minute version of an episode for ourselves to watch and see if we think this could work. If it doesn't look like that 3 minutes is going to work, if it's going to feel weird and awkward, we'll abandon the idea. So I had written a script. So we took a scene from the script, specifically chose a scene from the script which would sort of answer the question, why animate? Because there are things that you can do in animation that you can't do in the real world without having $100 million. You can draw things that you can't build. And so I sort of chose a scene that I'd written that showed that. It was sort of like a Road Warrior or Mad Max kind of post-apocalyptic scene with a bunch of, farm machines that had been turned into weapons of war, and, hundreds of them coming over. It was a fantasy sequence. And that was the type of thing that we wouldn't be able to do in Corner Gas, even though in Corner Gas, we had built in this device where you could flash out from reality and see what was in somebody's head. So that was built into people were familiar with that. But once we did the flash out in animation, we could do things we could never do. We had Brent and Hank fighting on a pirate ship, and, we had all kinds. We did things in animation we couldn't do in live action. And so when we shot that 3-minute scene, it was basically an argument between Brent and Oscar, and then this fantasy sequence. And everybody who saw it just felt like, yeah, this is just more Corner Gas. This feels right. And so we dove in and went into the animated series. And the response was great. So we ended up doing multiple seasons. We did 4 seasons of the animated.
So in 2005, you and your co-star Nancy Robertson tied the knot. And since you've continued to work closely together, not just on Corner Gas, but also on the show Hiccups, which you wrote, produced, and aired back in 2010. What was it like working so closely with your wife, and in what ways did working together bring you closer?
Well, I think that we work together really well. I think it helps that the basis of our, relationship at all was a working relationship. I think some people thought that Nancy and I came into this married, but we really met doing Corner Gas. That's how we met. She auditioned for the part. Everybody loved her read, and she got hired to be Wanda on the show. I knew who she was, but I didn't know, just as, like a comedy professional. She did improv comedy with the Vancouver Theatre Sports for years, and she was very, commonly regarded as like just the best at improv comedy. And so I knew who she was, but I didn't, we'd never really hung out or anything. And then we met doing Corner Gas, and it all went from there. So it was kind of, I think it would be more difficult if somebody had a relationship first and then tried to forge a working relationship. But for us, it was easy. It was the other way around. I was kind of at work, I was the boss, and she was a hired gun. And so that was the foundation of our working relationship. So it was easy to carry that on. And she's very funny and very creative. And in Hiccups, she had a producing role because she was the lead. It was all about her character, Millie Upton. And so, yeah, we just worked together really well. And I still consult her on story and character issues when I'm writing something. I'll have her read it and say, does this seem real for the character, or does the story make sense as somebody who, she comes at it from an actor's perspective, which I'm really not an actor. I've done some acting, but I make sure the character that I'm acting is a lot like me, so I don't have to work too hard. I think I know my parameters as an actor, but she's a trained actor who really understands character and motivation and all that kind of thing. So I still consult with her on stuff that she's not even a part of.
Now, to kind of go back and touch on the first question a little bit, as we enter into the age of AI content, where most people are beginning to struggle with knowing what's real and what isn't, have you noticed an increase in demand for live performances that offer people an undeniable live and real experience?
I haven't noticed that, but I have no doubt that that's going to be the situation. That there's a connection that needs to happen with performance and show business and entertainment and any kind of art. There's a connection that needs to happen, and I don't see where AI is able to do that. AI is, able to mimic a lot of the things, but it's sort of like, going to see a Frank Sinatra impersonator instead of seeing Frank Sinatra. That's sort of the difference, right? Um, but worse, yeah, it's sort of like it's sort of like buying a ticket to see Frank Sinatra, and then there's a record player of Frank Sinatra out there and a puppet acting like Frank Sinatra. So it's, there's no connection, there's no realism. So I have no doubt, and I have all kinds of hope, certainly, as a live performer, that people are going to, I think people are smart enough to realize that, what they're getting with AI is not the real deal. And I've I've heard lots of people say as much. And so, yeah, I think that's always good. I think the human connection is always going to be needed. And plus, the people who seem to be pushing AI at the forefront seem to be genuinely terrible human beings who seem to have a lack of humanity themselves. Like if you see them in interviews, there's sort of this glassy-eyed, dead-souled person saying, "No, we're just going to. We think that intelligence should be commodified like oil and electricity, and you pay for intelligence." What? Like it's almost like, oh, you've been replaced by a robot already. So I think that human connection is always going to need to be there.
What is something that you're really, really grateful for? And then to follow that up, what is something that you're really looking forward to?
I'm very, very grateful for, and you're sort of not, you don't think of it at the time, but growing up, I'm really grateful that I sort of plopped into this family, the seventh of seven kids with a mom and dad who, we didn't have any money growing up. There was a lot of kids, but it was this loving, supportive environment that you don't really know how good you have it until you get out in the world and you start talking to other people and see and hear how they grew up and the struggles that they had. And, their parents were abusive or there were these weird expectations put on them and they were constantly chastised for being a failure or whatever. Or there was these weird expectations. I just never had any of that. I really, I had cool, funny, loving siblings and cool, funny, loving parents. And it was a very supportive, secure environment. And it's only in hindsight you look back and go, wow, like a lot of people don't have that. So I feel very fortunate that happened. And what am I looking forward to?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the show in Timmins. I can't
Yeah.
wait to hit the stage. Right, I turn right into just sales mode there.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. Well, I've written. There's a couple projects on the go that I hope materialize. One, I'm writing my second novel now, and also I've written a pilot for a new TV series that we're going to start shopping around. So hopefully that'll hit the airwaves. Hopefully somebody will like it enough to make it, and then we'll go into business. Because I really enjoy TV and film. I really enjoy the process. It's such a team sport. Stand-up comedy, I love it. I love it for completely different reasons. It's really, solo, lone wolf adventure. You're responsible for everything. And then with TV and film, it's such a team sport. You have to rely on the talents of everybody, and everybody chips in. So they're two things that I really love to do, and they're complete opposite sides of the coin.
Is there anything else you got going on that you want to put out there?
No, I mean, if anybody's interested, I do. You can go check out notexactly.tv. That's sort of a video mail out that I do every week. That's kind of fun and loosey goosey. So if you're interested, go to notexactly.tv. See if it's something you want to participate in.
Not exactly .tv. Brent Butt, thank you again for being here.
My pleasure. Nice talking to you.